how I made over $2 million in one deal as a real estate agent. Now, this was 20 years ago. I'm 39 now. I was 19 when I put this together. And this was the catalyst that rocketed my success. I've now sold over $2 billion worth of real estate. I did a lot of it on about 4 hours per week. And I can teach you exactly how I did this. In fact, today, I'm going to be giving you my exact system, the amount of knowledge that I had before I put this deal together so that you can do the same. So make sure you watch it. This is an incredible deal. You're going to love the story. In fact, you're going to want to share this story with other people you know, because one of the secrets that you're going to learn is about how to raise capital. See, when I put this deal together, I was broke. So let me rewind a little bit. Okay. Now I am third generation real estate. I'm not going to hide that. My grandpa was a realtor. My dad was a realtor. I'm a realtor. It is what it is. I do have 3 generations of it. But one of the things I learned from my father was about audiobooks. So at 16, he gave me the book Rich Dad, Poor Dad, and that put in my mind, not that I necessarily wanted to be a realtor, but I wanted to be a real estate investor. That was my goal. And so it put in my head, oh, I can be a real estate investor. However, I had some limiting beliefs. Those limiting beliefs was that I was too young and too broke. So one of the things that Robert Kiyosaki teaches, not necessarily in that book, he has another book called The Cash Flow Quadrant, also an excellent book. I recommend both. But this is what he teaches in the cash flow quadrant. So you've got an E over here, an S over there, B, and an I. And so what this stands for, the E is employee. They work for somebody else. They get a W-2. That's their life. They're just an employee. The next is self-employed. As a real estate agent, you're self-employed. But what I looked at this as is not just self-employed, but also skilled. Because a skilled labor, especially self-employed skilled labor, can earn quite a bit more than an employee, right? So I didn't think at the time that I could be a business owner. I own several businesses now, but I didn't think I could back then. And I didn't think I could be an investor because I thought you had to have money to be an investor. And I learned later that that's not true. So I focused on the S. The S as a skill, I said, I was the captain of my wrestling team, so I was in pretty good shape. And I said, okay, let me be a personal trainer. I was working out 4 hours a day as part of the wrestling schedule. And so I'm like, okay, I know what I'm doing enough to go help other people. So I went and did that, and I was making about 3 times more than minimum wage at the time. Minimum wage in California was about $7. I was making 21, 22, depending on the paycheck, right? Because I would get paid, and then you divide and how many were floor hours, how many were training hours, and it worked out to a 20 to 22 bucks an hour, which is 3 times minimum wage. And I realized very quickly that I could barely afford my 1-bedroom apartment on that salary. I had a girlfriend at the time that was still in high school. So she moved out in high school, and I'm supporting her while she's in high school by paying for the rent myself. But, I could barely get by, right? So I was struggling a lot. And part of my path to being a better personal trainer was I read a book called Think and Grow Rich. And this was recommended to me not for me to have my own personal development from reading the book, but to learn how to motivate my clients. Because if I can get them to believe, they could better achieve, they could get better results. And so I read the book based on the recommendation that will help them. But really it helped me. Because what it unlocked in my mind is that I don't have to wait to be a business owner or an investor. Those are self-limiting beliefs. I can just go out and do it. I don't have to wait. And when the student is ready, the teacher appears. So the next thing is I said, okay, I can do it. How can I do it? And that's when I went on a mission. I started reading No Money Down books. I bought the infomercial stuff. I was on a quest to be able to buy for no money down. So I went out and I door knocked thousands of homes. I'm out there every single day, hours, getting my reps in every single day, knocking on doors. Most people don't answer, right? But it is what it is. 100-degree heat in the summer, sweating. It is what it is. But I went out and I door knocked, and I got multiple people who wanted to sell. But they didn't want to sell for no money down to an 18, 19-year-old, right? Because I was 18 and 19 while I was doing this. And no money down. It didn't make sense to them. Even though I tried to do everything the book said, it just didn't work. And so I was a little frustrated by this, but going back to the gym, I was still a personal trainer. That's how I made money. And so one of my clients was a real estate agent. And I said to him, hey, if I help you get a sale, because some of these people do want to sell, they just don't want to sell to me. If I get them to meet with you and then you sell their home, will you give me a cut? And he explained to me that there's laws and all of that. And then he said the magic words. He said, why don't you get your license and go do it yourself? And I thought, oh, okay, I can go do that. That way I'll get some cash flow going by being a real estate agent, right? And you get in your mind how easy it's gonna be, and I made spreadsheets, and we're gonna do this, and we're gonna do that, and then the rubber hits the road, and it's nothing like that. And so my first brokerage that I worked at was Keller Williams. They have excellent training. I highly, highly recommend the training at Keller Williams. I'm never gonna poo-poo that. Like, that is good training, right? And so one of the things they did is they gave me a mentor. So now I have a mentor, but when I had my first closing as a real estate agent, I'm paying 40% to Keller Williams. I'm paying a third to, well, I guess it goes in reverse. I'm paying a third to the mentor. Then with what's left, I'm giving 40% to the brokerage. And then the same guy who was my personal training client got me into being a real estate agent. He was paying for my marketing materials. Because when I went and door knocked, I was giving them marketing materials that had my name, my face, his name, his face. We're a team, right? So part of the team is that he's paying for the marketing materials, and then when I go meet with them face to face, I was 18, 19, not the most credible, but when he shows up as the senior, then he has that authority that I didn't have as a teenager. So we worked well as a team. So I'm giving a cut to the mentor, a cut to Keller Williams, a cut to this guy. I'm not complaining about any of it. But what I'm left with, when I do the math and figure out how many hours did I put in, I was making more as a personal trainer. And so I wasn't ready to give up, right? I never reached that point, but it was very, very frustrating that even though I've had a couple commissions, it really didn't change my life. In fact, my girlfriend at the time got in a car accident, and the amount of money I ended up paying out just to cover, because she wasn't working, she was in high school, right? So the amount of money I paid out wasn't even covered by the first commission, right? So like I was in a deep hole, but I had ambition and I knew I was going to be successful. So I kept going. And one day I get in the mail a postcard. And the postcard says, investing for realtors. Let me write this one down because it's super important. Investing for realtors. Investing for realtors. Massive change to my life after attending this seminar because I learned 3 key things. At the seminar, it was only 2 hours, and part of the 2 hours included a big sales pitch for his weekend seminar that I couldn't afford. So when I put this deal together, the things that I learned was from the free 2-hour seminar, and you're gonna learn the 3 most important things that got me to do this deal right now. Those 3 things are, number 1, you can raise capital. I never had it in my mind until this point of going on this seminar that I could just raise the capital to be an investor. I didn't have to wait till I had savings. I can go raise capital. Now, you as a real estate agent, you have past clients, you have your sphere of influence. All of these people could be willing to invest with you if you brought them the right kind of deal that had enough meat on the bones, right? So one of the examples I like to talk about is that a lion can hunt field mice. They can do it. But it takes so many calories that the hunt isn't worth it because they don't get that many calories from the hunt. Instead, the lion hunt antelope, the larger animal, so that they could bring it home with enough meat to feed the family. So you have people in your sphere, you have past clients, you have people that are around you that are interested in making money from real estate. And you might say, oh, but they don't have cash sitting around. Do they have equity? 40% of homes are owned free and clear. 80% of homes have enough equity that they could refinance or get a home equity line of credit, pull that capital out and reinvest it. 80%. 40% of them are owned free and clear. You have people that can do this. And if not, go door knock to build a farm area, and in that act of doing the farm area and your regular real estate activities, you're gonna have conversations with them about I see that you like your home and you don't want to sell, but have you thought about buying investment property? Let me teach you about that. So even if you know nobody, you move to a new area, you know nothing, go door knock, do a farm area. This isn't a video on farm areas, but I'm just giving you that quick thing. You can raise capital. That's number one. Raise capital. Number two, highest and best use. Now, there's 3 methods of appraisal. You learned about this when you got your license, but you probably forgot about it because you don't use it. But there's 3 methods of appraisal. The first is the comparison method. If you do a CMA, comparative market analysis, you know about the comps. You know about how to run comps. You look at the actives, you look at the expireds, the withdrawns, canceleds, solds, most importantly, and you run comparisons and you adjust for that subject property versus the comparison properties, and you come up with an approximate value, right? That's your job as a real estate agent. You're not quite licensed the same as like an appraiser is, but that is more or less your job, to come up with a value, present it to the seller and let them choose the end price, but you're gathering that data. So you're very, very good at running comps and getting that data out to them. And if you're not very good, there's Zillow, right? Zillow, if you know anything about Zillow, it's not accurate, but it's better than knowing nothing, right? It at least gives you something to talk about with the client. So you have at minimum that if you don't know how to really run comps, but if you know how to run comps, this is the main thing you're looking at. Now, the second appraisal method is the income approach. If you do any commercial real estate, you get into multifamily, and when I say multifamily, I mean 5 units and above. When you're dealing with that, you're using the income approach. How much does the property bring in income? What's the cap rate? So still the comparison method, right? Or gross rent multiplier in some areas. I rarely see that, but cap rates are the main thing. So you take the income, net income, subtract out the expenses, multiply it, divide the cap rate into it, and you get a value, approximate value for what the property's worth, right? So you might know about those 2, but the third, you definitely got tested on it. It's the highest and best use method. Now, even if you know what highest and best use is, my question for you is, when is the last time that you looked at a property that was marketed based on it, the comparison method, that's a house comparing to other houses, and then did your own analysis on what is the highest and best use of that land, and is that a higher value than the property as it's being marketed as a single family home or perhaps a duplex, but you look at it as something bigger, better than what's currently there, and then what's the land worth underneath that? Or another way of looking at it is maybe you keep the subject property as is and you add to it. And I'll give you a real quick one for anybody in California. You could do this in other states too, but anybody in California, every single home in California can be a triplex, every single one. And not only that, you can take the 2 extra units that you add and sell them separately. So you can do like a condo conversion. Right now, you build 2, they're ADUs, accessory dwelling units, but they could be 1,200 square feet. So that's a whole house. So you can fit 3 bedrooms in 1,200 square feet. So you can take one house, convert it to 3 houses, and sell each house separately, okay? So you can do this on every single property in California, every single one, okay? And it used to be that if you add a new unit like that, you had to add parking. Not anymore. In fact, you can take away the parking. You could take the existing garage, usually 20 by 20, sometimes bigger, but roughly 400 square feet, turn it into a studio, and then sell the studio. And not only did you not have to add parking for that unit, you took away parking from the main unit, okay? So you can do this, right? Highest and best use. Let me write that down. Highest and best use of the property. You can do that. You can do that analysis on any property and see, is it a higher and better use than its current use? And if so, what is the property worth based on the ability to do that project, okay? Keep in mind, I learned this for free. You're learning this for free. I used it to go make $2 million on my first deal at 19 years old, okay? You can do this, right? You might have to read Think and Grow Rich. Maybe you need to watch more of my content, get a little bit more motivated, but you can do it. Now, the third thing, and this was really key to this specific deal, is that you can do a zone change, and the zone change can have a higher and better use than the subject property. So let me write zone change down, and I'll explain this deal that I did and how I got to that profit. Let me recap real quick. Investing for realtors. This is the key. You don't want to hunt field mice. You want the antelope. You want the bigger deals because this represents about 150 commissions. 99% of realtors never make 150 commissions in their entire life. I did it in one shot at 19 years old. That was 20 years ago. You can do it. It isn't easy. You do have to do work. You do have to take risk. You have to be sophisticated enough. Not everybody can do it. Not everybody's going to do this. Let's just put it that way. But maybe you're the one who does this because I was the one who did this. I went to a 2-hour free seminar, learned these 3 things that I can go out and raise capital. I could be the investor. I don't have to be self-employed. I could go be an investor. I can find a property that has a higher and better use than what it's currently being marketed for. And even then, I can still do zone changes to get a higher and better use when the owner has no idea that they can do this, and the realtor that represents them has no idea that you can do this. So you have insider knowledge about how to put a deal together and make tremendous amounts of profit. Another analogy I like to work with is appetizers versus the main course. You could fill up on appetizers. In fact, let's say that you're making the appetizers, and every appetizer is a different appetizer, just like every commission is a different commission, right? So you're making a bunch of different appetizers. You can do that, or you could just make the main course, and it's way easier. And so that's what we're gonna be talking about, how I did my first deal. Let me erase this, and we'll go into the deal that I did to make this kind of profit. So the very first thing that I did is I went out and I raised capital. How much? Over $500,000, more like $550, but I was paying points and interest on it, so I paid the points up front. The net was still over 500,000, quite a bit more than 500, but we'll use 500 even because it's a simple number and we could do math on it. So the very first thing I did is raise capital. So I went out and I raised over $500,000. It wasn't so simple as just going up to somebody and saying, will you give me $500,000? Okay? It was a process. So here's how that process went. After I left that seminar, which again, I couldn't afford to go to the weekend seminar to learn, even more. I only had what I learned in the 2 hours, which included a big sales pitch on the weekend seminar, right? So I went out and I tried to find a deal. In fact, I did find a deal that I can do exactly that. I got a 3-inch binder and I started filling it with the zoning information, the fire, turnarounds, all that stuff. I was not good at Photoshop, but good enough that I can sort of lay out an aerial view of the property and just kind of put boxes over that to say kind of over here, a basic site plan really. And saying, okay, here's my idea of it. I started talking to, you guys have Grok and ChatGPT. It's way easier for you than it was for me 20 years ago. But I started talking to contractors, getting bids, prices, understanding what that is. It took me a few weeks of research to get this binder going. And once I had the binder, that's what I had to go bring to people and say, here's the deal that I'm looking at. What do you think? A whole spreadsheet of how it's going to make profit, blah, blah, blah. And I got somebody who was eventually, right, not the first person I asked, but eventually I got somebody who was interested in that deal. So then I went back to the MLS, pending. Somebody else put in an offer, got it accepted before me. And I said, okay, well, lesson learned. I learned about how to put this together. I talked to a bunch of people. There's the main person who I was able to raise capital from. There was other people that were interested. I made forward momentum. This is good. Okay, now let me find another deal. So I find another deal. I start putting another 3-inch binder because I didn't want to lose the first one, so I got a new one. Start putting everything in there, and it took me, half the time, so we'll say 10 days, and I got the deal. I go straight to the person who I eventually raised capital from and said, hey, I've got this deal. And they said, okay, we're interested. And same thing, go back. It was too late. And after this happened twice, I said to them, look, this is just going to keep happening. I need to raise the capital first and then go find the deal, because if it's really a good deal, someone will jump on it before us if we don't move quickly. They understood that. They had built enough trust in me of the 2 separate properties, and they said, okay, let's do it. So I formed a company. They loaned money to the company. The company was paying them points and interest, okay? So once the capital was in there, I owned the company. So it was my capital, but I had the debt to them, right? Real quick, I'll do a whole separate video on debt, but debt is the fast track to becoming successful, right? It's not just that you can raise capital, but specifically through debt. Real estate is only profitable because of debt, but that's for a whole other video. I'll explain that later. But just know debt is the key, right? So raise capital, debt. I paid, I want to say 12% interest and 2.5 points, I think I paid them, right? So 1% per month on the $500,000 is $5,000 per month I'm paying out from the money that they gave me. But what did I do with it? I made this kind of profit, okay? So I found a deal after I had the capital, and I bought this deal for $1,400,000. $1,450,000, but I got my own commission. I had them pay closing costs. So $1,400,000 is a cleaner number to do a net with, right? So I buy it for $1,400,000, okay? So I buy it for $1.4 million. Now, this property was originally listed for $2.2 million. It sat on the market for 1.5 years. Price decrease, price decrease, price decrease, price, over and over. It expired with one realtor, went on with a new realtor. By the time I got to it, it was the third realtor, and they were asking $1,650,000, okay? I came in at $1,450,000, but I also did 20% down, which is $290,000. So we'll do down, okay? Now, what you'll notice is that this $290,000 is a lot less than $500,000, okay? So I didn't use all of the $500,000. I'm paying interest on all of the $500,000, but I didn't use all of it. Paid $290,000 down. Then the seller gave me financing for the other 80%. So we'll go SF for seller financing equals 80%. Now, this was 5% interest only for 5 years with a balloon payment at the end. What that means is that I paid him 0 in principal. I got my payments as low as I could. 5% was lower than the market rate. Market rate was around 6% at the time. So I'm paying less than market rate interest. And he's happy because he owned it almost free and clear. I want to say there's like an $80,000 mortgage. So the $290,000 pays off the $80,000 mortgage. It gives them more than enough to do what he wanted to do. The guy was actually a savvy guy. And so he ended up doing a lease option on some other property, and he did good. The problem is he didn't know what I knew because I went to the seminar and he didn't, right? I was also a real estate agent, he's not, right? So I did have a level of knowledge above him, but he also had an agent that he hired to represent him. And as an agent myself, I do not represent him, I represent me, and I'm in business to make a profit. In fact, every time I bought any property, I always give them the disclosure. Devin Niemer is a licensed real estate professional. At this time, it was in California. I'm now licensed in Texas. Devin Niemer is a licensed real estate professional in the state of California in business to make as large of a profit as possible and does not represent you in any way, and hereby recommends you get your own real estate agent, attorney, financial advisor, any other advisor as qualified by the seller. Right? So I would always give them this advice. Sometimes they would take it and actually go hire a realtor, and sometimes it kills the deals. Sometimes they hire a realtor. The realtor says, I'm an idiot, don't know what I'm talking about, because he doesn't know how to do the analysis I already told you about, and says he's overpaying for your property, you should sell to him. So that happens sometimes. And sometimes it kills deals. But the worst thing is you make a big profit like this, and then they turn around and sue you for taking advantage of them because you are the licensed professional and they're the novice, right? So the guy was savvy and he was happy that he got his $290,000, and he understood that if I stopped making him payments, he gets to keep his $290,000, foreclose on me, and go sell it again to somebody else, right? So seller financing is better for the seller. Think about that. He gets almost $300,000. And then he still keeps the property. That's a good deal for him, okay? A little bit of a pain in the ass to foreclose, but a good deal for him, okay? But I'll do seller financing in another video. But just know it's better for the seller than it is for the buyer, and when you understand that, you can get the sellers to accept it. So I put down the $290,000, 80% loan. I turn around and put it back on the market for $4.5 million, okay? Relist. So I put it back on the market for $4.5 million. But I didn't just do the same thing he did when he tried to sell. So when he tried to sell, or when he did sell, because I bought, he had a description that marketed it to somebody who was going to live on the property. It's on an acre of land, it's got a 1,800 square foot warehouse in the back, you can run your own business from home, you have privacy, there's a guest house, there's a pool, there's a koi pond. He was marketing it like that, where the last line of it says, may be able to add 3 lots, or may be able to subdivide 3 additional lots, buyer to verify with city, okay? So it wasn't a for sure thing you could even do it. He's just saying you might be able to do it as the last line of the description. Now, if you go on Realtor.com, Zillow, and any of these sites, you're not reading the last line. People read the very beginning of it, and then there's this big bulky paragraph, and they stop reading before the end of it. Okay, that's your typical pattern. So people aren't seeing that this is a development opportunity. They're seeing it as a house. You look at the photos, every single photo is about the house or the warehouse or the guest house or the pool or the yard, the gate in the front. It's all about that. So the buyers are looking, that's the kind of buyer, right? He's marketing it for that kind of buyer. I did something very, very different. I put it on the market and said 7-unit gated community in progress. Buy it now for a massive discount and finish yourself for a profit. Community pool, spa, and waterfall. Okay? I didn't say, come live in here, run your business here. I did none of that. So now, who am I marketing it to? I'm marketing it to the contractor, to the developer who tells their real estate agent, I need you to go find me a deal. That real estate agent doesn't know what I'm telling you, and so they're only looking for the things that are marketed in that way. They don't know how to find the hidden stuff I'm teaching you how to do. Okay, if they knew how to do that, they would have bought this property some point. It was on the market for a year and a half. Any of them could have bought it. So when I put it on as this opportunity with this kind of price and this kind, like that marketing, and keep in mind, it was literally the next day. The very next day. I think we closed escrow on Wednesday. I listed it on Thursday. Literally the next day, it's back on the market. Okay? Now, I did not get $4.5 million for it. And actually, let me just tell you one more thing. Okay? Because he said may be able to subdivide and add 3 more lots. I said 7. I knew something he didn't know. So let me explain this one to you. The property was on a flag lot, okay? So it looked like this. It was a square acre with a long driveway, okay? About 200 feet for this driveway and a square acre once you got in here. So the total property is slightly over an acre, okay? Now, he goes to the city. Now, I used to be meaner in describing the employees that work for the city because my initial experience was only in Los Angeles. I've done development deals all over, and I've talked to a lot of the small town people at the planning department. Those people are actually really good and really helpful. So I no longer bash the people who work at the planning department. But in Los Angeles, especially back then, they treat you like a number, like you're at the DMV. You pull a number, you wait sometimes 2 hours, you come in, and they're just trying to answer you as quickly as possible so they can go take their cigarette break. Less people smoke now, but this is 20 years ago, right? So they do not care about helping you find the loopholes and the zone changes, and they don't care, okay? So here's what they told him. They said, even though you have a lot of land back here, your problem is this driveway. The driveway is only 20 feet wide. If it was 25 feet wide, you can get a regular public road, but it's not. It's only 20. And you can't just steal it from your neighbor. So, because it's only 20 feet wide, it has to be a private road. And at the time, a private road could only support 4 units, which is why at the last line of his description, he says, may be able to subdivide 3 additional lots. Okay? So the house was about over here. There was a guest house right here. There was a pool with a jacuzzi and koi pond, which I put in a waterfall. And then over here was that 1,800 square foot warehouse. So what he was talking about doing is adding in a couple more units here and extending this up as a road, and you'd have to do some sort of cul-de-sac. My drawing's a little bit messed up, but you get the idea. That it would be a house here, house here, house here. So that was the vision that he had, which there was no picture of it, right? So it's just, you have to figure that out from the last line. And then when you go meet with him in person, because the realtor that I talked to was comfortable with me just going to the property and talking to him in person, because as the realtor put it, he can describe the opportunity better than the realtor can, okay? That's a problem on its own, but not my problem, it's their problem. And so the seller explained to me how you could do that. Now, I knew something he didn't know, okay? And that is about 2 miles away was a big project, maybe 300 homes. And if you went and you drove the neighborhood of these 300 homes, what you'd see is it looks just like any other community. But if you go to the tax records, what you'd see is they all share one lot. And it's separate APN numbers, just like condos and townhomes. The reason why it all shares one lot and has the separate APN numbers is because it was on a steep grade and there was curbs, and so they wanted to get credit for the amount of land of the grade and use that to figure out the density, meaning how many total homes can be built. And then normal lots, they have restrictions that limit your ability to do pie lots or weird shaped lots. And by using the extra land of the hill and being able to put the fence line wherever he wanted, he was able to build a lot more homes than as if he just built it on your typical R1 zoning. That was a zone change from R1 to RD6. So this is Los Angeles. Wherever you're from, it's going to be different. And even in Los Angeles, we're talking 20 years ago. So things have probably changed since then. So R1 meant 5,000 square foot minimum lot size. You have to have 20 feet in the front, 15 in the back, 5 on each side, and then you have a buildable area in between, right? And the RD6 is townhome zoning, but at 1 unit for every 6,000 square feet. And at first you look at that and say, okay, well, 5,000 square feet or 6,000 square feet, I'd rather have it 5,000 square feet. But here's the difference. That 6,000 square feet counts the street right here, including the driveway right there. And the most important part, because it isn't a private road, it's just the driveway, there is no restriction to say you can only have 4. So when I put it up as 7, it's because I started the process to get that zone change, which would have a much better, higher and better use than what the seller had a vision for. So going back to those 3 things, I raised capital, I figured out the highest and best use, and I figured out I could do a zone change to get that highest and best use. Okay? So I put it on the market at $4.5 million, even though I just bought it for $1.4 million. So that's 3.1 over. But the key words in my description, buy now for a massive discount and finish yourself for a profit. Why did I list it 4.5 million? Because I said that's what I'm going to sell it for when I'm done. I'm not done. So make me an offer for what you think it's worth right now, and every single day as I make more and more progress towards my vision, the price I accept will be closer to that 4.5 million. So if you want the best price, come in right now and buy it from me right now. That was my conversation. I was the realtor. So people call me. That's what I would tell them about the price and why the price is what the price was. Because when they looked at it, they're like, oh, it's overpriced. Yeah, exactly. That's what I'm going to sell it for when it's done. Make me an offer for what you think it's worth today. I'm not going to lower the price. I'm just going to make it better and better until it's worth that price. So if you want to come in when it's halfway done, you want to come in when it's 3/4 of the way done, you're going to pay much closer to that price. But I'm right at the beginning. Make me an offer. So I did get an offer. That offer was $2 million, okay? $2 million is $600,000 more than I just paid for it. So let's do some quick math on that. The offer that came in was $2 million, right? So $2 million offer, okay, minus the $1.4 million that I just paid for it 2 months earlier. I just bought the property and boom, I get the offer within 2 months. okay? That equals 600 grand, okay? So it's 600 grand. So how did I make 2 million in one deal? You have to adjust for inflation. This was 20 years ago, almost exactly. I was 19, I'm 39 now, okay? So how do you adjust for inflation? It is not quite this much, sometimes more, sometimes less, but if you look historically, every 10 years property prices double, okay? So you take 600 grand and you double it and double it again. So 2 times 600 is 1.2 million. Okay, you double it again, you get to 2.4 million, okay? 2.4 million. Now I said 2 million, why? Because it isn't quite doubling every 10 years, it's slightly under that. So when I said over 2 million, that's exactly what I mean. It is over 2 million today. It represented about 150 commissions back then. It represents about 150 commissions today in one deal. And again, 99.9% of agents are never gonna make 2 million or 150 commissions ever. Their entire career, they're not gonna hit that. I did it at 19. And then I used that as the catalyst to how I've now sold over $2 billion worth of real estate. This isn't my biggest deal. This was my first deal. And because it was my first deal, I thought it's the perfect one for my first video on YouTube to start my coaching process. So if you are interested in coaching, I have worked with thousands of real estate agents through my marketing company, but it was about how to be better as a real estate agent, and it was a done-for-you service. So we weren't teaching them how to do things, we were just doing it for them. If you want to learn how to do better in your own real estate business, I can easily teach that. On expireds, for example, my average client sells 57 homes per year, right? We work with the top 1% of realtors. Not only that, we have access to their CRMs, and inside of their CRMs, I was able to figure out every single deal that they close, what was the source of those leads. On top of that, in 2020, we took on 80% less listings than in June of 2020 than we did in June of 2019 because COVID happened. And after that, the market went crazy. Days on market went down to weeks. A neutral market is 6 months. When you have 2 weeks worth of inventory, that's a crazy seller's market. The expireds went away. We saw about a 60% decrease in the number of expireds that hits the market. And as a result of that, you get about 80% less listings is what we got, because when there's a low quantity, there's low quality, meaning all the homes that were good enough, they all sold. What you're left with is the junk that still didn't sell. And when I say junk, I mean, it's a $400,000 house. They say, if you get me $1 million, I'll give you the listing. Like, no, like that's a junk lead. We would never give that to a client, right? And so when that happened, we said, okay, now we have to figure out other lead sources for our clients, because 80% less listings is 80% less listings. We can't have that. So we started experimenting with lots of different types of leads, internet leads being the primary thing that we focused on. And individual companies, we figured out which ones perform the best, which ones don't. So I can consult very, very easily on how to do better as a real estate agent. But again, those are appetizers, right? Now what I'm doing is teaching the main course, okay? And I always thought that I was gonna do this only through private. Like I would do some sort of marketing and I wouldn't reveal secrets like this, like I did for free on YouTube, and it would only be for the people who paid me. But I'm smart enough to know that I can hire people. I hired some marketing consultants, and shout out to you guys because you guys are very smart. And what they said is put it all out there, zero gatekeeping, give for free your secrets, and then charge for the implementation. What does that mean, charge for the implementation? I offer coaching services. There's a couple different things about this that I just want to explain real quick. We get on the phone every single week. 1 week is a larger group, and it is content like this, where you can ask your questions live, and we go deep and we say, how does it work in this market? How does it work in that market? Specific to, all of that. That's week 1. Week 2 is where you have a limited group. We're doing groups, maximum 50 people. And with those 50 people, not a single one of them can be in your market. Because what I've learned from other groups I did through the marketing company is that real estate agents don't want to share their secrets with their competitors. They're happy to share it with somebody in a totally different market, but they don't want to share it with people in their market. So we put together groups of 50 people maximum, so that everybody can open up and share what's working for them and how they're able to tweak it for their market and all of that. On top of that, you get on a one-on-one phone call with me, and I'm going to go through your entire business. How do we help you grow? How do we help you? In fact, I teach 7 different ways to get to $100,000 a month. Okay, 7 different ways. The best, I will tell you right now, is a hybrid option between all of them, meaning the best meals are a 7-course meal. You have your appetizers, you have your salad, you have, okay, so there's a bunch of different things that you can do. It comes down to 3 main sources of income: commissions, cash flow, and profit. But 7 different ways. Each way on their own, you'll learn how to get to 100 grand a month on each of the 7 ways. But if you want to get there the fastest, then it's a hybrid option of all of them, okay? And so that's what we teach in the coaching. It's for an entire year. Now, if you want to go in a second year, you can always audit it, and the accountability could last for a lifetime, okay? If you're interested in that program, go ahead and click the link in the description and schedule a call. We'll talk about it in a lot more detail, see if it's a good fit for you, see if it's a good fit for me, because I'm not taking on everybody. If you come in and you're not actually going to do these things, I don't have time to waste. Time is our most precious resource. I have 3 kids. I could be with my kids. I have a wife. I could be with my wife. I have friends. I could be with my friends. If you're not going to take action on the things that I teach you, I'm not going to waste my time. So I need to make sure you're an action taker and you're actually going to go out and do these things. And most importantly, that when you do these things, you're going to give me an excellent testimonial for it, right? So if you're not ready to go in for my coaching, that's fine. This is the first video. So if you need more experience from me, I'm giving away a lot of content like this for free. I have about 50 videos planned. Okay? Every single one of them is a massive value for you. So make sure you subscribe, hit the like button, share this with people that you think can benefit, specifically if they're the type of person you can raise capital from. Because if they're the type of person you could raise capital from, all you have to do is say, hey, I'm joining up for this guy's coaching to go do these kinds of deals, and then I want to split that profit with you. That's a way for you to go raise capitals. Give them this video, tell them that script, okay? People that already know, like, and trust you. You send it to some random person, you send it to your 300-person farm area and they don't really know you. I mean, it's good for me, it's exposure, but that's not the same. I'm saying pick 3 people that you think you could actually raise some capital from, send them this video, tell them that you're signing up for my coaching and that you want them to be your partner on these kinds of deals. Because we are going to take their equity in their home. Again, 40% of homes are owned free and clear, 80% have enough equity that they could tap into it, okay? And you arbitrage off of that interest rate. So if they're gonna pay 6% and you're paying them 12%, they're getting double their mortgage. Or better yet, if you wanna incentivize them better, you give them a percentage of the profit. Okay, I didn't have to do that, but you can do that. You can give them a percentage of the profit, it's a bigger incentive. Right? So you can do these kinds of things, and this is exactly what I coach. So if you're ready for that kind of coaching, click the link, schedule a call, we'll get on the phone, we'll figure it out, make sure we're a good fit. If not, subscribe, like the video, share it, comment. Do you have any questions? I said I got 50 videos, but maybe you have questions on this video or something else that you want to learn, and I might look at that and say, oh, I'll make an entire video responding to your comment. So comment that below, and I will talk to you later.